for you, the viewer and listener, to become more civically engaged. And I'll tell you what, the best kind of elections are contested elections, and the best kind of elections are contested elections where a lot of people vote. And I think what we're doing here with Real Talk with Keith Smith is informing the community in an approachable fashion, putting content on social media and on phones that are in hands everywhere across the Commonwealth and certainly in Fluvanna County. So you get to know Tim Hodge and you get to know James Schoenster right here on Real Talk with Keith Smith. Ask questions, shape the discussion, let us know what's on your mind. We don't mind if you push the candidates, but it's got to follow a golden rule mindset for you to push them. There's one thing to ask challenging questions, and you got to do it in a respectful fashion. Judah Wickower is the director. Viewers and listeners, we'll highlight a few that are watching the program. Lake Monticello is all over our heat map right now. Quite a few people in Lake Monticello. We'll highlight James Watson, John Snow, Bill Mooncachi watching the program, Chad Wood watching the program, Holly Foster, Lisa Kustla, Joshua Tracy, Real Estate 3's finest, Georgia Gilmer, Kathy Carpenter, Eric Thompson, Dr. Downey, Bob Yarborough, Catherine Lochner, Gary Palmer, Laura Fauner, Seth Batten, Andrew Vaughn, Lauren and Keswick, Colby Hall, Jen Finazzo, Jen Downey, Scott Morris, Tyler Berry. A lot of people watching the program right now. Michael Pruitt, hello and welcome to the program. Todd Raff, the owner of Blue Toad Hard Cider. J-Dubs, my friend, we can rock and roll when you're ready. Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and this is Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us live in downtown Charlottesville on a show that I'm very excited about, Coffee with the Candidates. If you heard the start of the show, before the cameras went on, we highlighted our favorite kinds of elections, and those are contested elections, when the voter turnout is high. And this particular race is a contested election. We have two gentlemen we'll introduce you to on the program, Tim Hodge and James Schoenster on Real Talk with Keith Smith. You, the viewer and listener, is encouraged to ask questions and help shape the discussion. Judah Wickower, if we can go to the studio camera, and then the foreshot as we welcome the distinguished gentleman to the program, a man who has a sterling memory for first names, Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us.
The key is to remember my first name. That's the key. So as Jerry was doing his intro, this popped into my head, and I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for running. Right? I did this in 2009 for the Cunningham District. My accent kind of didn't help me out so much there, but I understand it, I appreciate it, and I just wanted to say thank you for doing this because I know what this means to you personally, to your families, to go out there and put yourself out there in public and run. So no matter what the outcome, I want to take a moment and say thank you. And as Jerry said, contested elections matter, right? Non-contested elections like they're having in the city of Charlottesville isn't an election at all, in my opinion. So today we're gonna kind of talk a little bit about who you guys are. This is a real estate show, so we're gonna kind of focus a little bit on real estate. Some people may be passionate about that, some people may not be. I definitely am. But we tried very diplomatically and democratically to pick who introduced themselves first. And I did that via a deck of cards, and these gentlemen picked the high card. And James, so introduce yourself, you know, who you are, why you're running, and you know, what do you see moving forward in Fluvanna County, and then how do you think we can get us there? And you know, we'd like to wrap it up in about 3, but take it as much time.
Yeah, I don't know if it was an omen or not, but I actually drew the Joker from your deck of cards.
I chose not to say anything about that, James, so that you know.
I'll let the audience decide what exactly that means. But my name's James Schoenster, running for the Board of Supervisors in the Palmyra District. And if you've been driving around Fluvanna, you've probably seen my signs that say Nature, Nurture, Schoenster. It's not only a great way to help people pronounce my name correctly, which Jerry successfully managed, and
Thank you.
The 2 words before it are tied into my platform. But what does nature and nurture mean? The first thing, nature, is the number one thing I hear from folks when I'm knocking on doors is that they want to preserve Fluvanna's rural character. Fluvanna is a beautiful county, and we want to keep it that way. I want to make sure that when my daughter grows up, she can drive down the road and see nothing but trees or cows and farms along the side of them. And Pleasant Grove is a gem, and we want to try and utilize that to draw in tourists to see our beautiful county, and we want to take care of that natural beauty. The next thing is nurture. The biggest problem that I'm seeing is a lack of investment in infrastructure. We got to do a little bit better about making sure that the people in the Fluvanna County are taken care of. We've got a bit of a shift onto the taxpayers, the residents. There's not enough commercial industry in Fluvanna County. If you take a ratio between the residential real estate tax revenue and commercial real estate tax revenue, you get about 96% on the backs of residents. And we got to have the infrastructure in our areas where we're planning development in order to attract those businesses. Now, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. We have a comprehensive plan where it designates these small areas for development, like Zion Crossroads and Fork Union. And it's just a matter of getting that infrastructure, particularly water, into those areas so we can get compatible businesses into those zones and shift the tax burden off the residents. When I say compatible businesses, I'm not talking about more storage units. I think we need to get things like hospitality or recreation, like a bowling alley, something for kids to do. And that way we can shift that tax burden, like I said, off the residents. A little bit about me, my whole life I've been in Virginia. I went to Virginia Tech, and my wife went to UVA, so a little house divided there. We invite neutral parties over twice a year for basketball season and once for football.
How's the therapy going?
It's going really well. We have fun on those game days, but otherwise she's on the same team as me. And we went and moved to Fluvanna about 7 years ago, and we have an 8-month-old daughter.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's really the number one reason why I wanted to get into politics and run for the county, is to try and help make Fluvanna a great place to raise my daughter, as well as the rest of my neighbors. In fact, I'm very community focused. It's why I've been volunteering with my neighborhood in the Lake Monticello HOA. We've been organizing events for young families and other residents, bring like the Easter Bunny and treasure hunts and arts and crafts events, and we've been doing that for a couple years now. I've also volunteered with the Habitat for Humanity. At Virginia Tech, I studied finance, so I took that in my financial industry experience, took that to Habitat for Humanity and provided one-on-one coaching to some of the candidates in order to give them just a little bit of those tools so that they can understand how to manage a budget, how to weigh the pros and cons of buying a home. I'm happy to say that after we walked through it, one of the candidates I worked with, determined that it was a lot better to go with the Habitat for Humanity program than trying to buy a home in
So you're a Habitat
on
owner?
their own. I am not, but I helped someone else go down that path. I'm in Charlottesville, so I got to get a little bit of my Hokie propaganda in. Our motto is Ut Prosum, or that I may serve, and I really just live that motto. It's part of who I am and what I want to bring to Fluvanna County. So I would be honored if the folks in Fluvanna were to allow me to serve.
Thank you, James. Jim, you're up. You drew the card underneath Tim, and my motto is Semper Fi. Tim, I didn't even get halfway in. I didn't even get into it. Tim, sorry about that, Tim.
That's okay.
Okay, show's over.
I grew up all over Central Virginia. My father was in retail, and retail's a lot like the military. You go where they send you. Back in 1985, I joined the Air Force and spent 20 years in the Air Force, all of it overseas. I've served in Europe, Middle East, North Africa, the Balkans. When my time came up at the end of the military, I figured with my degrees in IT and other areas that I would venture out and do something in the corporate world. I went to work for Security Printing and Systems, to put the encryption on the UK passport, and after 3 months completed that task, they invited me to join them on the corporate board, and I spent the best part of 9 years on the corporate board of a billion-dollar company. We crossed 5 continents. The biggest project I ever managed there was a $800 million passport facility for the Romanian government. Following my time there, I went and decided I would do philanthropic work for a while. All of us directors of that company, when we got out, we decided that we would give back to society. I helped my friend Sarah, who had a ferret rescue. Did that for a couple months, and then I ended up going to work for the Guinness Partnership. And it's their charity arm of the Guinness Brewery, and their social housing. That's how it started, creating housing for their workers in Ireland and the UK. They ventured off into care homes. They ventured off into facilities maintenance for the houses that they owned. They were the 4th largest one in the UK. It was an incredible opportunity to see how you can put back in society for those that need it the most. As my time came up there, I decided it was time to come back home. We were debating where to go. I wanted Central Virginia. My wife wanted the beach. She wanted to be at Virginia Beach. We split the difference, chose Fluvanna. I was planning on being happily retired in Fluvanna, and they kept advertising for an IT person. Mm-hmm. So I came out of retirement again. I spent 5 years working for the county in the IT section, so I got to work with all the elected officials and in all the departments. And it was a good experience. We improved a lot of their finance systems and processes. And I tell people, had I not worked for the county, I probably would have never run for office. I became involved in, community activities. I became aware of things that would need to get fixed, and I would talk to the leadership in the county or the other elected officials. And it was through those conversations with elected officials, they said to me, Tim, look, you've got the experience leading people in the military. You've got the experience in the corporate world. You understand the county from the inside. If you truly want to fix these issues and bring about change, you have to run for office. You can't complain about it and not be willing to do something about it. And that was the main driving force, having seen it from the inside. I understand the problems and issues that we face, and I think I've got the tools and the experience and the temperament to go forward. And I hope the citizens of Fluvanna County deem me fit to hold the office of supervisor in the Palmyra District.
So, Tim, I apologize.
That's all right.
But I don't get my kids' names right either, so that's not that much. So, I'm going to kind of pivot a little bit here. So I sit on the Piedmont Community Land Trust's board, and I'm just curious, the model that the Guinness was using over there, do you think that model would translate over here?
I do think it will. They looked at it in several different ways. So, as I've mentioned previously, when people talk about affordable housing, there's 2 types of affordable housing: affordable to buy or affordable to rent. And you have to drill down and ask them that. And then when people talk about senior housing, are they talking about assisted living or independent living? And those are 2 different things. So, Guinness had affordable housing, so they had 2 different types of schemes for people that weren't looking to get on the property ladder. They had rentals, low-income rentals based on the income of the person, the ability for them to pay. At any point, those people could then decide, I do want to get on the ladder, and the rent that they'd paid minus what they used for maintenance and upkeep could be put towards like an escrow towards buying that particular property.
That's cool.
They're affordable to buy one, rather than going through large corporate builders that were looking to make a profit, and the profit margin on a house is huge. They were engaging with smaller builders to build houses that were affordable, and they would build them in what they would call brown belt areas. So it wasn't in the city, but it wasn't totally rural. It was close enough where they had the services and utilities they need. And particularly for people that are trying to get on the ladder, they don't have a lot of spare expendable cash. So if you move them too far out, away from transportation hubs and the sport infrastructure they need, it becomes a challenge. Same thing with the senior housing. They had schemes, and a lot of them, they would move people around. So say a person, their kids had grown up and they need less bedrooms, then they would swap them with somebody, a young couple that was in a one bedroom and had their first child. They would do like a house swap, and the senior could downgrade and the young family could upgrade. So there's
I'm
quite
curious,
a bit
how does that compare to Piedmont's approach?
Well, the major difference between the Piedmont Community Land Trust and that model is the land trust retains ownership of the land, right? And then the buyer buys the unit above it. So in our county, Fluvanna County, we could go and buy a piece of property, retain the ownership of the land, and then turn around and sell the property above it. And there's deed restrictions on it. So for 99 years, it must be sold to somebody who makes 80% AMI and above.
Yep.
But James, you know, and I took a bunch of notes down and with big explanation points on your name, Tim, so I'll get that right. But let's talk about the rural nature, right? You mentioned about the rural nature.
He led with that. He led with that, yeah.
You led with that. So how in your...
Very, made me very nostalgic of Chris Fairchild, who sat in that seat a handful of months ago with similar mindset, yeah.
We've had a lot of conversations about that, and I will point out, Chris and I probably have varying views on how to best protect the rural character. I'll say that the number one thing for me is we've got to get that commercial tax revenue up, because otherwise our taxes continue to increase and the pressure on landowners to sell to developers is going to rise.
90+% of the budget. 96% of the budget.
So
tied to rooftops.
So
he wants to jump in on that.
Go ahead.
Well, it's a little bit different.
Okay.
The ratio between the residence real estate and the commercial is 96%. The budget, if you add in public works, it's going to change the numbers a little bit.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter is that we need to do better in Fluvanna about commercial revenue. For example, if you just look at sales tax, Louisa has over double the revenue generated from sales tax.
They're crushing it.
Yeah, and so we end up having folks from Fluvanna driving into Louisa, spending their money there, and then coming back into Fluvanna. And, you need those services, so we're going to provide those services to the people in Fluvanna, but we got to supplement that income with some businesses for people to spend their money and keep that circulated in our economy.
So, Tim, this is a dynamic thing, so jump in. We want to be rude and not interrupt anybody, but, this is a dynamic conversation. So how do you feel a little about that? So just a little perspective from my perspective real quick. I've been here in Fluvanna County since '87, so I've been through a lot of gyrations. But how, in your opinion, are we going to keep the rural character of the county rural? Plus, we're looking at third quarter for Lake Monticello, medium sales prices, $350,000, and out in the county is $400,000. How are we going to reconcile both of those competing forces?
I would say start with a comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan's in 2015. It should have been completed by now. It's not been completed. It went into committee with citizen engagement, and it's died there. Somebody needs to give it a good kick and get it going again.
So talk about why the comprehensive plan is so important.
The comprehensive plan lays out the vision and the roadmap of how you move forward. So you can think of the comprehensive plan similar to the plan that the early developers had for Lake Monticello. And when you drive around in Lake Monticello, they've built houses in there and not destroyed the rural nature. Tree-lined streets, it looks good. And it's something similar to that we need going forward. But James is absolutely right when he says if we don't get the economic side. Now, the economic side is a bit of a conundrum, and I'm friends with Dwayne Adams, the chair of the Louisa board, and Dwayne really is taking advantage of it, and they're getting ready to expand down Shannon Hill and down 64. And that's
how about $11 billion from Amazon?
Yes. So Fluvanna's missed the ball on a few things. We could have had a Cracker Barrel there, and for the love of a sign, we decided that that's not what we were going to do.
But that's
and Louisa's also really good. When the businesses, you have to have the foot traffic. You have to have the bodies passing through an area.
Yep.
And what Louisa does is when they're looking at that 15, 20-minute drive area, the sphere that they're putting up is including and counting the people in Lake Monticello. Now, I've mentioned it multiple times. If the people on the Louisa County side of the border can count Spring Creek and Lake Monticello, why can't Lake Monticello count the traffic on 64 and the people that live in Spring Creek? It goes both ways. That doesn't mean we're going to be able to develop down near the lake, but there's locations along the 250 corridor, and part of the development issue there is there's, without the comprehensive plan and without having the parcels correctly zoned, you have, if you look at several of the parcels, it's like industrial, business, commercial, industrial. It's like it's a mixed use. In reality, your industrial should be together, your business, commercial should be together. Nobody wants to open a furniture store next to a cement manufacturing plant or a junkyard.
I agree 1,000%, but let's set a little bit of context here. The comprehensive plan is a non-obligatory document, right?
Correct.
Right. So what matters is the zoning, and you mentioned Lake Monticello. It's an R4. It's a unique zoning. Most of Fluvanna County is zoned agricultural A1. The problem is the zoning that allows you to reproduce Lake Monticello or something more like a traditional 2-acre. I think that's what you're promoting, right? It doesn't exist any longer. So that is not on the books, right? So you're either needing to cut a piece of property up into 4 lots or 5 lots, which fiscally doesn't make any sense, or you're doing a cluster development, which I've done one, is a bit of a cluster. And you can figure out the rest of the word on that. So back to Jerry's point, you need infrastructure. We don't necessarily have that.
Well, I mean, the viewers and listeners are chiming in with this left and right here.
So my point is you can adopt this comprehensive plan, but if you don't have the zoning to support it, then it's just a document, right? So,
You're right.
So how are we going to amend the zoning to allow this development to happen the way you guys are visualize it? And James, you want to chime in on that?
Well, you got to be able to change those zones. And right now, even though we are only on a 2015 comprehensive plan, even those small zones for development aren't being rezoned the way that we need to. So yes, let's get a longer term plan in place, but the work to help develop those areas needs to start yesterday.
Well, Tim, you want to chime in on that real quick?
Yeah, I think the way you get this sensible zone and get things grouped together right is going to have to be where business leaders, landowners who currently hold the parcels, and the economic development people that are in touch with the businesses that want to come or have the opportunity to come to your area, you may have to convince landowners to put in to rezone.
It always starts with the ready, willing, and able landowner. If a ready,
Yes.
willing, and able landowner isn't willing to sell and the buyer isn't willing to buy, we're not
It's
going
not
anywhere.
gonna
We're not
happen.
going anywhere.
Correct.
And I think we've had a lot of problems on the buyer's side because there isn't that infrastructure there to encourage you to come in. If you want to put a business into some of these areas and you're looking around and you say, well, the county said that water will be here in the next 5 years, and then 5 years go by and it's another 5 years before we get water
I had no
there.
gray hair when that sort of thing started.
Then, it's no sense that it makes perfect sense that businesses will be shy to approaching these landowners for their property.
And we do have water at Zion Crossroads right now.
Yeah, but it's 100 and some odd thousand gallons of water. It's not a
But
substantial-
we're not
Band-Aid.
using it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they are having to flush some of it to keep the circulation in the large water
100%,
tank.
100%,
So that means
100%.
we have greater capacity of water than we have consumption. So there is the opportunity there. Now, as businesses come in, will we be able to get more? Yes. I talked to the public utilities people, and what they said, 3 to 5 years, they said it's looking closer to 3 or less.
We're talking about the water from the James.
The James River water,
got it.
and it's basically the intake, and that was a huge mistake wanting to put it at Point of Fork years
Well, nobody
ago.
did the historical review on it.
There
Well,
were
the ones who did weren't listened to.
there were people that spoke out against that, and those people were shouted down or ignored.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to think back in the early days, man settled along waterways. And where 2 rivers or 2 streams converge tends to be your greatest source of development. And I just don't know why we thought that would be a great idea.
Comments coming in from voters. Stephen Peters. Rooftops and traffic drive the demand for commercial properties.
Yep.
Without enough rooftops, there will be little demand. Wanting bowling alleys and other things will not get it. Only enough customers will do that. Furthermore, Steve Peters says this: customers will not drive 20 minutes to Fluvanna when they can get what they need at Zion's Crossroads, making multiple shopping stops 5 minutes from each other. Brittany Gray chimes in. She and Cam are watching. She says, "Hi, Tim," and I believe she's running for Fluvanna County School Board.
Yes, she is.
We appreciate you running for supervisor. You have already done so much for our county, and we cannot wait to see you in leadership. Fluvanna needs you. Ricardo Cruz Duran watching the program. Neil Williamson watching the program. We have multiple media outlets watching the program literally as we speak. Viewers and listeners, if you'd like to chime in, put your comments in the feed. We'll relay them live on air. A handful of elected officials watching the program. The commercial and residential broker Tim Carson watching the program right now. Newspaper in Fluvanna watching the program. This question's all over the feed. Where are the candidates on density with housing in Fluvanna County?
So I do want to address something that the first comment you made about
Stephen Peters.
yeah,
Dan
well-
Pettit, we'll get to your comments coming in fast now.
Yeah. A bowling alley will not bring people in necessarily, but Zion Crossroads is where I think that sort of thing needs to appear. It isn't far from the interstate, and part of that area is in Fluvanna County. We have housing coming up in Lake Monticello. There's housing and development on the other side of Zion Crossroads in Louisa. So there will be people there, and we need to make sure that we capitalize on that.
Okay. Dan Pettit, I'll get to your comments here. I will get to people are pushing back a little bit on Tim's comment where you mentioned Louisa County can utilize the interstate and the density with cars on that interstate to attract business. And you mentioned, why can't we utilize Spring Creek and Louisa to attract businesses to Fluvanna?
Exactly.
Folks are pushing back on that. We'll get to that in a matter of moments. First, the density question. Where do the candidates specifically stand on housing density? I mean, that could determine this election.
Jump in, guys. Whoever wants to jump in first.
Yeah,
Whoever wants to jump on that
I'll
hand
go first.
grenade.
No, yeah.
That could determine this election.
It's actually it's pretty straightforward for me. If we have the infrastructure to support the density, I'm in support of it because that's how you actually protect our rural character. Because the alternative is sprawl.
Tim?
The density is important, and on that in particular is, for the multi-family, multi-unit dwellings, and we have some going in at Colonial Circle, and I know that's going to be a lightning rod.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't know nothing about that.
yeah, exactly.
Colonial Circle.
But I
No
talked
idea
to-
what the hell you're talking
I
about.
talked to Steve Peters about that also, but it's workforce housing that people are going to need,
Yeah.
and there's nothing similar. Now, were some of the design choices the greatest? Probably not.
Well, but that goes back to the requirements from the R3. The requirements from the R3 required
Yes.
that to happen. So,
Yes.
so the what we call zoning text amendments. This is stuff that if you guys want to influence density and influence growth, is really looking at these zoning ordinances to try to support the vision of the comp plan. I interrupted you.
Absolutely.
Tim, I'll let
Now,
you finish.
I mean, I think as going forward on each of these projects, what we have to do is weigh each one up on its own merits and the
Sure.
requirements. But Mr. Peters is absolutely correct. And there is probably some pushback, but, a radius for determining your footfall goes both ways.
You're talking. This is the reference to utilizing Spring Creek's density and
Correct.
Louisa's density to attract commercial development in Fluvanna County.
so
correct.
Okay, he should expand on this.
Go ahead.
So if we're in their catchment area, it only goes to say that they're in our catchment area.
So I do a fair amount of commercial work, and I can assure you that's exactly how there is no lines when I'm looking at density and how if a Chick-fil-A is going to come in or a business or an IBM or an Amazon or whatever is going to come in, they will cross borders. There is no border there. But I will tell you, there are a number of businesses that that I work with that refuse to come to Zion's Crossroads because there's no rooftops. There's no place.
To Zion's Crossroads?
To Zion's Crossroads, yeah. And even on the Louisa side, there's just not enough places. They don't want their employees at whatever dollar point traveling hours or an hour and a half, whatever it may be, to work over there. So it's this delicate balance. You can't really have one without the other. It's a chicken and egg kind of thing.
But before either of those things happen, chicken or egg, you
need
got to have
water.
the infrastructure in
You gotta
there to
have
support
water.
it.
Yeah,
You got to be
and-
proactive.
And Tim, I've been involved in this literally since 1987,
Yes.
and the fact that we're now 6 more years out, it just blows my mind. But let's stay on Zion's Crossroads for a while,
Sure.
Tim, and I'm going to let you tackle this one. Any appetite to grow the growth area there? Because the growth area is pretty small.
It is pretty small. It depends on the landowners. I mean, they've laid out what they see, and based on the zoning, this occurred in the planning department. Now, it has grown down Route 15 because we got the pod storage going in, and what they're talking about doing is having a gravity-fed sewer line that runs down Little Creek Road to near the Troy Post Office, and then putting a pump station in to pump it back up 15, and then that opens that corridor and that area in for development. Being in consideration with that, Lake Monticello's wastewater treatment plant is near capacity. They've got a grant to expand, but that's not something that's going to happen overnight. So the Lake Monticello development area is pretty much maxed out, barring any other landowner adjacent changing it. And I'm on the Ag Forestry Committee, and we just created the 20th Ag Forestry District on the southwestern side of the lake, which locked 200, well, the core of it was 200 some acres, but it was over 400 some acres is now locked up in the Ag Forestal District that can't be developed for 10 years.
So if we all agree, Zion's Crossroads is kind of where we want to
And
see.
you have your transportation links there too.
See the growth. I'm not happy to hear that we're that far out with water because, you have the water component to it, and just to go through the rezoning and site plan process.
Yes.
Like Colonial Circle or not, that was a 6-year process.
Yep.
To get through on that. So we're 6 years or so before whatever it is, we get water. Then we got another 6 years. We're in a whole different market. But Jerry and I constantly talk on the show about Albemarle County growing its 5% growth area. So if we all agree Zion's Crossroads is the place we want to grow, rooftops and businesses and all that stuff, back to my appetite question, it's a small area. This is a matter of the jurisdiction drawing a circle and saying, now this is all in my growth area. Are we willing to look at that to grow that so that development happens there instead of next to Lake Monticello?
Yes.
Yep.
That was a pretty simple answer. There you go. Two yeses. Okay, there you go, Smith. Batting 1,000.
I mean, the other issue we have in and around the Lake Monticello area is anyone that's lived there and commuted into Charlottesville in the morning or tried coming home in the evening, both Route 53 and Union Mills Road is bumper to bumper, basically.
16,000 people a day, both ways, go through that route.
We got to give people in Fluvanna somewhere else to go to work. If they're going down 53, that's not sustainable.
And we're constrained.
But is that going to happen, John?
Where would that be?
Yeah,
Zion Crossroads, Fork Union, the areas where we need to get water to attract those businesses and put those rooftops.
I'm just going to call it like it is. I love Moselle Booker with all my heart and soul.
That ain't happening.
But that ain't happening. You're not seeing business people that are trying to put multi-billion-dollar corporations and entities over there. It's just not going to happen, and for a long time.
Because there's no density.
But Zion's Crossroads, it will.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's why they go hand in hand. I think
Yeah.
you can do a little bit of both. I don't want to focus on Zion Crossroads and just condemn Fork Union.
That's in your. I get it, but that's in your district,
That
right?
is in our
Well, okay. It actually, I don't think it really much is. I think most of the Zion Crossroads is going to be more in Columbia now that they've had to move stuff over just to keep the population distribution even.
Sure.
But I'm running for all Fluvanna County. I know I'm in
Well,
Palmyra
that's a
district,
great question,
but
right?
It
'Cause
should be whole county-wide focus.
That's a great question to see how you two gentlemen feel about this, because as one who's on the other side of the table, all around most of the jurisdictions in the state of Virginia, one of the things you commonly hear is, well, I'm just representing my district, right? So you really,
No.
so your mindset is as though I'm being elected for the Palmyra district, I'm really going to represent the whole county. 100%.
You have to. You don't
Yeah, good.
recuse yourself on those votes. But, like what I was trying to say on the Lake Monticello area and the traffic, the roads are horrible. So until VDOT improves those roads, you don't have the transportation infrastructure. This water and sewage is near maxed out. So until we get improvements there, so it basically leaves you with Zion Crossroads. Zion Crossroads don't add to the traffic. And I'm a firefighter, and the number of accidents we go to during rush hour, and when you close one of those two main roads down, traffic backs up bad.
Sure.
And it's limited by the number of bridges over the Rivanna and the number of choices you have to get on the north side of the Rivanna to get to Charlottesville and other places.
So I do want to get a geek out a little bit about VDOT. I understand this pretty intimately. We have a smart scale system now.
Correct.
So that's the system by which smart would be a very good giggle there. But it's a new system they used to have a 6-year plan. Things got stuck in a 6-year plan. But one of the criteria, that's the reason a roundabout ended up on 53 and 618 by effort, because it was directly connected to a subdivision.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't understand, in order to get these improvements to run through funding of VDOT, it has to be connected to some sort of development. And a lot of folks don't know that. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Go ahead.
Or you can get the developer to do it. So opposite the main gate of Lake Monticello, when they had Village Oaks, and that took 12 years to come to fruition, the developer paid for those turn lanes there.
Absolutely.
That eased off the traffic.
Absolutely.
So people can say they don't like Village Oaks, but Village Oaks gave them something.
So the problem with that is, at the time when that was done, gentlemen, proffers were allowed.
Yes.
You guys as elected officials cannot ask for proffers anymore. They have to be volunteered. There used to be a kind of a tantamount to blackmail of negotiations. I paid my fair share, but by the state, because we're a Dillon Rule state, the state has said you guys can't ask the developer
No, you
for
can't.
proffers.
But more often than not, the developers and interested parties will come to you beforehand.
There you go.
Because they've got good people like you in their ear.
To gauge the temperature.
James, thanks, man.
I mean, I'm just a candidate,
Yeah.
and I've had tons of people ask
Sure.
me for my professional advice.
Sure.
Where do you see this? What's the temperature of the community on this? So it is a matter of making suggestions and having dialogue. The only way we're going to go forward is have full and open dialogue and have options and choices. And then, as in anything, I'm not saying that everything's perfect, but you have to look and weigh each development up on its merits and the pros and cons, what it brings and what it detracts, and determine how we're going to move forward. And that all starts through proper planning.
What proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Correct.
United
7
States
Ps.
Marine Corps.
Yes.
Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. I don't think I'm supposed to say that on air.
Proper
but that's-
planning and preparation.
You could say that.
7 Ps, I learned it in Paris Island.
Oh well, I learned 6, so it must have been a few years before you, or
It was
I can't even get
8.
your name. I can't even get your name right, so it may have been 7. Who the heck knows? I want to go back to Colonial Circle and the apartments, because it's going to come up. It's a thing, right?
Yep.
Do either one of you gentlemen know what HUD's area median income is for our county, for our region?
I can tell you last year's number.
What was
I'll let
last
you
year's?
go.
Yeah, I think it was something like 86,000 in Fluvanna, but in Lake Monticello, it went up to like 120.
Now, I thought it was 96 on the previous one, but it's up into 123 or 126.
Both gentlemen, give them props. Both
Very
gentlemen
good.
right there.
Very-
123.3, 123,300.
No, that's
according
HUD,
to
so
HUD.
that's the MPO. So this
Both
is-
you guys get a gold star there.
There you go. It's the Charlottesville MPO, which includes our county.
Right.
Right? Into that. Why is that so important? In relationship to the apartments, and Tim is smiling, and he knows, I think he knows the answers. I'm going to let him answer that. Why is that so important in relationship to the apartments and the fact that the county gave them a special tax deal for 60% AMI? Why is that important?
Well, with that, what it would be is it determines who can go in there.
Exactly.
So based on last year's numbers and the percentage that it was, and I was told it was 50%, it would have put it in the upper 40s. and most of our teachers were over that, so they were advertising this for the teachers, and all but the starting deputies were over that amount.
Right.
So,
It's kind of
you
smoke
know,
and
when you
mirrors.
say this is for teachers, this is for deputies, they wouldn't have qualified.
I call that a shell game.
Now, the grounds people working for the county, yes. Some of the, you know, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, yes.
So there's a second side to this, gentleman, that is not just area medium income. Because it's going to be a HUD project, there's maximum amount of money that they can charge and rent.
Yes.
So let me get this out there. Efficiency apartment, this is 2024 numbers because they've already put it out. They cannot charge any more than $13.92. One bedroom, $14.15. Two bedroom.
One bedroom, $450 a month.
Two bedroom.
That ain't cheap.
$16.78. Three bedroom, $2,114. Four bedrooms, there's no four bedrooms. It would be $2,600. So there's two sides to the equation, right? A, you got to be 60% of the AMI, which is in the 60s to 80,000, which does cover your cops and your teachers, and they can't exceed these dollar amounts. That's the balance in that.
I was looking at the numbers last night for what current stock that we have, and the lower end of the current stuff was in the 900s
You're
per
talking about
month.
rents.
Rents.
Yeah, yeah.
And the average, the median was 1,300. So it's right in line with that for what we have in the stock right now. Now, of course, these apartments are going to be newer, so they'll be in better shape than some of the stuff we have out there. You have to remember some of those rentals are in single wide and double wide mobile homes spread throughout the county. Same thing like when we talk about house prices. You know,
You got two in Lake Monticello, interestingly, both by Yes Realty Partners. Christopher Eagle at $284,500 at 775 Jefferson Drive, and Christopher Eagle at is it Choctaw Place? Am I saying that right?
Choctaw.
Choctaw, thank you. $260,000 in Lake Monticello. And one of the smartest people we know, Yona Smith, has got a listing.
She is the smartest person I know.
The smartest person. Okay. Yona Smith, the smartest person. In Lake Monticello as well, she's got a listing. Keith, if you're going to help. Oh, I found it right now. 8 Fleetwood Drive at 624.9. Can you gentlemen guess how many listings are on the market right now at Lake Monticello? I have the MLS open.
it's either 29 or 31.
Not even close.
What do you think, James?
I'll go with a dozen.
6. Go.
James gets this gold star. 13.
13.
Looking at it right now.
14.
Well, I took out-
15
I
with a
took out-
proposed attached.
And I can tell you, I
There's
haven't
14.
looked.
Rentals?
This is
This is Lake Monticello or all of Flavanna?
Lake Monticello, 1,
Oh,
2,
Sorry.
3, 4.
No.
5,
There's
6,
there's 13,
7, 8.
yeah, but I took out new construction.
Okay.
Because these are kind of paper houses.
Wow.
What you're probably,
I'm looking at the Fluvanna County numbers as a whole.
yeah. So we can go ahead and take a look at this. But one of the reasons we like to look at I like to look at Lake Monticello, and I actually use it as a litmus test around the area because we're 4,400 homes. We're all about the same size lot. There's not a very large mixture of different type of product types on it. You have different areas, waterfronts a little
Waterfront,
bit
yeah.
more.
Your comps are about the same.
They're about the same. It's a really good, stable way to take a look at it. But
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
you're going to contradict me on something?
No, I'm not.
So
I would never contradict.
God forbid.
I would never do that.
So we've got 13 according to what I'm looking at right now. The median list price is at 389. And I can tell you there are only 3 below the 284 number. And one of them has been on the market for 50 days.
389 at an 8% interest rate. We just surpassed 8% yesterday. That is not first-time home buyer.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you mentioned this because I actually was looking at just the house I'm in right now, and we were very fortunate to get in there about 6 years ago. And I
You
was
got a
looking-
lot of appreciation and equity.
We have,
Yeah.
and it's crazy to think about the fact that the house that my family's in right now, we probably couldn't afford if we were looking to buy it today.
So if you guys take a look at slide 3,
We got a lot of comments.
Jude, if you don't mind putting slide 3 on. So what slide 3 is, I've got a side-by-side of Flavanna County, single-family detached. I drop out I drop out new construction. This is going back to 16. So what year did you buy in?
6 years ago.
Yeah, 6 years ago.
So 2017?
I think it was December of 16.
Okay.
So your median sales price was 190 at Lake Monticello. Now it's 340, 350.
Yeah.
Good job.
Shout out to my realtor, Barbara Bosick, for getting me on that.
Mr. and Mrs. Schoenster, well done. Very well done. Props are, let's get to some comments here. They're coming in fast and furious, and then I want to throw something in there. First, Ann Clark Ramey. Let's go positive. Ann Clark Ramey says, we have two great, strong candidates running for the Board of Supervisors. Thank you, gentlemen, both for running. From Ann Clark Ramey.
Thank you for coming.
I'll throw this in. First, let me get to Neil Williamson, then I'll throw mine in. Neil Williamson says, in regards to Colonial Circle, one teacher can qualify, but if they marry another teacher, they make too much to qualify.
Exactly right. That was the point you were
Total
trying.
household.
That was the point you were trying.
The point that Tim was making there. I see this, and I'm concerned about this for Fluvanna County, and I'm living this firsthand in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. I live in the Keswick area of Albemarle County. The values of homes have escalated so quickly that it's pricing out a large portion of the population. Mm-hmm. That large portion of the population is then being forced to rent because they can't afford to buy. Because the rental demand has escalated so quickly, landlords have responded by escalating rents.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Now rents are synonymous or have surpassed mortgage levels of, say, March of 2020, early 2021, before the insanity of COVID impacted housing. So what I'm fearful of for Fluvanna is housing becomes so unaffordable, even rental housing becomes so unaffordable that you're going to lose a lot of frontline workers, and by frontline workers I mean teachers, nurses, police, firefighter, rescue, folks that are doing front of the house and back of the house at restaurants.
Yep.
Folks that do retail, a lot of the jobs that are paramount to growing a commercial epicenter or commercial infrastructure, businesses.
Yeah.
And if they move away from Fluvanna and head to, say, Waynesboro, or they head to Stanton, will they consider driving to Fluvanna or Louisa or Charlottesville
To work.
or Albemarle County for work? And in that scenario that I've just outlined, the employer starts saying, good Lord, how can I even keep my business open if I don't have anybody to work in my business? If you drive through Charlottesville and Albemarle, you see help signs everywhere.
Yep.
We need help signs everywhere. That is a potential future for Fluvanna.
Well,
It is.
it goes hand in hand. So the housing market is no different than the car market, and it's driven by supply and demand. So, and what spiked, with the spike in the prices and the spike in the interest rate, it suddenly made mortgages unaffordable, pushed people in the rental market, the rentals go up. However, on the forecast for the interest rates going forward and the supply side going forward, the interest rates should come back, which then that will then open it up. They're saying
They're gonna go up first.
this
I've heard from so
We-
many mortgage brokers and economists that the interest rates are going to go down. This is what I've learned
As-
throughout this. Everyone has an opinion, and no one can tell the future.
no, you can't. But if
in theory, in
As-
economic theory,
because
right?
inflation's going down,
In
the Fed will
economic
reel
theory,
it back.
right,
It'll
about-
make it affordable, take the pressure off the rental, but it still means.
Let's set expectations.
I mean, like right now, we've got.
I mean, that could be
active
2025,
inventory.
Tim, when they
Let's
start
set
going
expect-
down.
Let's set expectations, right? It's never going back to 3.
No.
Right.
And the problem in the market right now is there's people, and the reason that, I mean, there's 37 active inventory in Fluvanna County. The problem is people are locked into these low interest rates, so they don't want to sell their house.
Golden handcuffs, 2.75%.
Correct. So they're not going to sell, so the inventory's not there, so they're not sellers, and which if they sold, they'd become buyers. So the market's kind of at a cool down point.
And compounding that, many local government and elected officials are not necessarily green lighting housing projects.
Yeah.
And the small and medium-sized builders got debt service that's so expensive, they don't want to jump in the game to create housing because the interest rate environment is
And that's a
astronomically
whole
expensive.
dynamic
Yes.
that's going to impact this whole water designs crossroads and this
Yeah.
timeline. You know, I'm on.
We're going to get further millions behind of housing. We're
So-
4.5 million short now. It'll get worse.
We've had
the country.
We had 15 years of underproduction of homes, right? 15 years. We're just now, if you take a look at the numbers this year, we're starting to get towards the median average for, since 72, whatever it is. I think that's going to drop back down again. I think the production numbers are going to drop back down again because the process is super expensive, takes forever, it's capital intensive. The small guy can't do it, or person, I should say, can't do it. So you're going to be left with the bigger entities that have the capital, that have the cash to go ahead and do that. So, you know, I'm predicting we're about 10 years before inventory starts even getting close to being what it needs to be. So we've got a 10-year runway of what's going on right now. Prices will increase, inventory will stay flat, you know, unless
See you on the show.
unless you're getting
People seeing him on the show over here. Go ahead.
Trying to make it stop making noise.
there you go. What, me you're talking about?
No, my watch is dinging away.
Really?
His friends are seeing him on the show.
Tim, I'm going to go back to calling you Jim if you keep on talking to me. Like
He's
that.
Joe. He wasn't saying that.
It's a joke. I'm
Okay.
just kidding. So, you know, gentlemen, what are we going to do? I mean, is this is the reality for the next 10 years?
For Tim's point, comprehensive plan, we've got a 10-year runway. We got to make sure that we are doing the right thing in the next
there's
10
two
years.
more rewrites in
and
that
then,
10-year runway.
And then we've got infrastructure that needs to be there yesterday. Any way we can accelerate that process, I would look for those ways, because if it's 3 to 5 years, we got to do it in 3. I don't see a way forward for Fluvanna without the infrastructure to support
it's
all
not.
the development that we need.
But it's, you know, I agree. If I had a magic wand, it could do it. I learned a long time ago in business, it's like a three-legged table. You can have it fast, you can have quality, and you have price. Those are the 3 legs. And you can have any 2 of the 3, but you can't have all 3 at the same time. I can't have it really good, really cheap, and really fast. So if you want it fast and you want a water infrastructure that's good, unlike
Right.
the broken pipes in Lake Monticello, it's going to take a little bit of time. So we're constrained by it, and we can't go any faster. To get the James River water intake in faster would require us to spend more money, which would require us to raise taxes. And right now, that's the number one issue when people are having to do it. They're choosing between medicine, they're choosing between buying things, and I hear it end over end. They're like, "Do not tax me out of this county."
But let's set it. Let's be real here. It's called real talk. It is going up.
Yes.
It is.
This is the first time since I've lived in Fluvanna County, the first time since 1987, the amount of cash I pay out for my home equals to, if he doubts me, I have to prove it to him one of these days. The amount of cash I pay out equals if my house was over in
Albemarle County.
And I think it's that
The sad part of that is
mentality.
the amenities aren't there with Fluvanna
No.
compared to Albemarle.
Oh,
which
and
is-
by the way, that doesn't calculate that I pay LMOA dues and all that stuff,
Yes.
which gets me my amenities. So in essence, I pay more.
The LMOA dues get you trash collection.
And what
And
he's talking
cops.
about is the
And
Lake
cops.
Monticello
Well,
Homeowners Association dues is what they're talking about,
If you
right?
opened the gates and made the owners association go away, the county cops would still cover you, that you're paying for.
Oh, brother, you're going down a road that
Yeah.
I proposed 20 some
And
odd
if
years
the
ago and
roads were
almost got
open,
ran out of the
county
county.
would plow 'em versus the maintenance crews. I'm friends with the maintenance
Yeah.
guy. I asked him, what do they do? Now the grass is not growing. What are you guys doing? They got to clear the roads. They got to keep trees that come down out of them.
So what are we going to do for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, my parents?
Mm-hmm.
They're in their mid-80s. They're New York City firemen, retired New York City
Yep.
firemen, on a pretty meager pension. Their taxes are going up. Their living expenses are going up. You know, we're super blessed. We can sell their home and come live with us because we've got the ability to do that. But most of the people that I know at that age group don't have that. And Lake Monticello in our county has a quite large number of them. What are we going to do to help those folks?
Well, we got to make sure that we don't keep doing what we've been doing, because that's been what's resulted in the taxes steadily increasing, the lack of investment in infrastructure. And if we don't change that perspective and do something different and actually invest in Fluvanna County so that we don't continue down this path, that's the only solution I see.
So what does that investment look like to you, James?
It's the investment in infrastructure. I know
Which
that
now raises the taxes, right?
Well, right, but if the alternative is do nothing and taxes continue to go up, then let's
I
try
agree with
something
that.
else.
I agree with you 100%, James. The
But
taxes are going
you
up.
got to have a plan for your spending. But the core of the question that you're asking, these seniors, they grew up in this community. They want to age in this community. I mean, I was fortunate that my father-in-law, we could move out of our house and buy a new build behind it, one street back. And We let him age with us. He would come around, eat meals with us. But there's been opportunities
And we turned them down.
for senior housing. And I was opposed to one of them opposite the main gate of the lake. And it was because, and I bought that property knowing that one was going to go in there. And I was fine with that. And the 200 plus of my neighbors were fine with that. But when they changed the plan from what they had designed to this monolithic building that would have overshadowed the single floor house that would have been right next to it into some Soviet era style 3-4 story block.
I know what
with
those look like, actually.
No adequate fire and water. The plan just wasn't there.
So what that's called is massing, right, and transition
Yes.
neighborhoods and how you move from that forward.
Had they went in with the original plan, we would have that right now.
But a lot
But
of
they
that,
didn't.
a lot of that is incumbent upon the elected officials to promote their vision. That's what the comprehensive
Correct.
plan does, right?
And it got deferred, and Chairman Sheridan at the time said, if your number was just lower, and he made it clear in the deferral that you would have swung the vote had you come back with something smaller. But greed was at play there.
I don't think the numbers quite worked on it because it's expensive.
did.
It's
Yeah.
expensive to do that. I don't want to. I'm a capitalist, right? So
Yeah.
I lived under communism long enough to know to say I'm a capitalist. But the reality of it is that the numbers just didn't work, right? I know enough about that world. You got to hit a certain number of units to make the numbers work because it's super expensive.
And so we're not going to see that stuff come in unless we have elected officials who are willing to work with the developers.
I've worked in that sector, in the charity housing sector. And so unless you're trying to make money hand over fist faster than the stock market.
Wasn't this the one owned by the?
It was
a
owned,
church.
the property was by Southern Development.
Yeah, I got that,
But it was the Methodist Church of Virginia was looking for a way to invest their
Yeah.
money. So they were wanting a return greater than the stock market, which
Sure,
meant
why
they
not?
were looking to make
Got it.
money.
Look at that, huh?
Now they came in saying, "Oh, we're doing this for humanitarian purposes," but when the money wasn't there, they pulled out and didn't come back after the deferral. Had they lowered the number and been a little bit less profitable, maybe not got them the market rate, that would have went in.
Yeah.
We were for it. So you have to put the greed in check. And I've said multiple times, when we grow houses and we let developers like Southern and Ryan Homes come in, the bigger developers, they're wanting to make a certain amount of profit. And I know this firsthand because my insurance is USAA. So they insure your house for what it cost them to put it back exactly the way it is. And when I told them what I paid for it, I asked them, I said, why are you only insuring me for this? I paid this amount for it because we can build it for less than that. I instantly knew what the profit margin on the house was, and I was shocked. Whereas, sometimes by going with a smaller developer that has a smaller margin, not trying to make as much money, may be the solution.
So
I got to push back a little bit on why a developer would want to make more than the stock market rate. I mean, why are you being a developer putting all that effort in when you could just throw your money in a mutual fund? That's a lot easier
Make
to
5%.
make the same amount as the
Today's world.
stock market.
So, Tim, I'll push back a little bit on it, and this
Mm-hmm.
is from a place of love. What you're not calculating in that is they don't calculate the land acquisition and the
Correct.
development cost. So you need to add that on top of that number, which gets you to there. I'm a recovering developer and builder. I know
Yes.
what profit margins are. If I would make 3 to 5% on any deal, I would consider that a good day. So take a
Yeah.
look at the national
Well,
averages.
I mean, I looked at that property down there to find solutions, GoFundMe's, put it in a conservation easement.
Sure.
Turn it, if nobody's going to do anything, let's turn it into a park for the neighborhood.
Sure.
But the amount that they wanted for that parcel was astronomical. I would never pay that amount per acre.
So back to Neil Williamson, and it takes a ready, willing, and able seller. It starts at that point, and
Yep.
right now, people want a very absorbent amount of money, and the math just isn't
Yes.
going to work. I do want to switch a little bit to Pleasant Grove.
Sure.
So unless Jerry's got something.
Oh, we have a lot. We have a lot. I'll try to paraphrase. We'll do our best to get to as many voter questions and comments as possible, folks. I'm going to ask this personal question. We have now gone an hour and we have not asked the question, does Fluvanna County need a new high school?
No.
No.
Okay. We've gone an hour and we have not asked a question about any schools at all.
Potentially. It depends on the demographics. I know in Lake
Okay.
Monticello, we've had a huge increase in young families, and
That's what folks are asking.
I'm contributing to that. And I think in a few, 5 to 10 years, when my daughter is going to school, we may need to look at a new elementary school. I don't think that's an immediate need, but it's something that when we're setting up a comprehensive plan, we need to be considering.
So does anybody actually know if the school population is growing or declining? Because I know in Nelson County
It
it's
declined last year.
Yeah.
But when you put Colonial Circle and the other developments in, it
Exactly.
will go up.
Yeah.
And the middle school is probably the next place that's going to need the most amount of development. There is some work in Carysbrook that needs to be carried out, the elementary school there. And there's things that needs to occur in Central Elementary. But the middle schools definitely need some work. The high school's fine. I've been in there just this year.
It's beautiful, actually.
And they do have some capacity.
Well-
But I think we're constrained at the middle school, hence why you see eighth graders in the high school to alleviate some of that.
This comment's come in. Why is it Fluvanna County's responsibility to solve Charlottesville and Albemarle County's housing issues? Charlottesville just got a bunch of money for housing and Fluvanna County got nothing.
I don't think it's Charlottesville's housing issue. I think it's the entire country.
Yeah.
Well, I think Charlottesville, I think the influences we're seeing in Charlottesville and Albemarle County are undoubtedly impacting Fluvanna.
Sure.
Yes.
So it's
They're our neighbors.
So that is why we have 123,300 AMI, because it's the region.
Yeah.
And I've this may not be a popular thought, but this is a regional problem. This is not Fluvanna's problem. This is not Charlottesville. This is not Albemarle. This is not Greene. This is not Louisa. We're talking about Fluvanna, right? How we're going to take care of Fluvanna, but those influences impact that. Back to your comment about how Spring Creek impacts our side of it.
Yes.
There's no, well, it stops at the border and you stay here. There is no border guards at.
Right.
A bulk of our workforce works and lives outside of Fluvanna County.
I believe that number is 80%.
It's a lot, yeah.
We are a bedroom community. So it's where people, their jobs in Charlottesville, it's where they choose to live. And they chose Fluvanna because of the rural nature, the nice drive countryside.
I
It's
could
a
afford it.
30-minute drive. And
Well,
the taxes were lower.
But it's at the point that you can't afford it. You're at 350.
Correct.
Yeah, well, so when
At
I'm talking
7
about
point,
when
what
I
is the
decided
rate,
to come
Jerry?
to Fluvanna.
7.31, 7.5?
The interest rate?
Yeah.
Yesterday surpassed 8%.
Okay,
Yes.
so over 8%. Didn't look at the interest rate this morning. Didn't want to get depressed. Talking to you guys.
Over
But
8%.
I want to go back to Pleasant Grove and the high school for a moment.
Okay.
Because we were talking a little bit about,
Multiple folks are saying the schools are going to be pinched very quickly.
Yes.
additional revenue. And I was very much so involved in the raising of the high school, new high school being built, was at the meetings, so forth and so on. It blows my mind. We have a 900-seat, top-of-the-line auditorium that nobody uses.
That
Yeah.
auditorium could be in a large city somewhere. Well, the first time I went in it was for a fire seminar back in March. I was shocked.
We have the parking there. We have the ability to
Yes.
get there.
If-
It's a freaking unbelievable system. I've
Yeah.
spoken there before for other events. It is unbelievable. Zero. Oh, second thing
we
is,
got to do better. Yeah.
but why not?
Well, we've got to improve our offering. We have to drive tourism. We have to come up with these good events that will draw people in. And I got to give my hat off to our economic development team. They've come up with a solution that should help alleviate the problem.
Yeah, but their hands are
It's
tied.
called-
They don't
yeah.
have the water.
Well,
Right? They only can
sure.
do-
New
they only-
advertising campaign.
Advertising campaign.
Yeah,
Find
I mean,
Fluvanna.
it's great. I love it.
Please, if you are on social media right now, go and like the page, Find Fluvanna, and it's on all the different platforms. Check out the website. It's a great way to help take advantage of what we do have in Fluvanna at Pleasant Grove.
So the second thing, that's the Pleasant Grove. The second thing, Tim, that blows my mind is we don't use Pleasant Grove for festivals. I'm a cyclist. How come we're not doing?
We're trying to organize a once a month during the summer, sort of like the Fridays after 5, but we'll just, we'll start small, do it once a month instead of every week. Try and bring in, I think it was called Groovin' at the Grove. Bring in music acts, bring in people to spend their money at Pleasant Grove, enjoy the
love
food
that.
trucks.
That was a great
yeah.
effort by Aaron Spitzer, the Parks and Rec director, to get that forward stage done. He's wanted to have a splash pad for ages to give the
There
kids
you
somewhere
go.
to go do in the summertime. We're constrained by water there, but there it's not going to get any. It's nowhere near any water system, so they need wells drilled. and those wells can then feed that. The
Invest in
well
water.
that serves the house is, they have to have a storage tank to build up enough water overnight that they can have it for hand washing and
It all comes
toilets.
down to money, but I will tell you,
Yes.
that passed by one vote. It was 1,000 acres for $1 million. I was there
That was a
during,
wise investment.
and that's why decisions at your level matter,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
And we would not be having that if that one vote got flipped one
Well,
way
yeah,
or the
if
other.
someone says, oh, well, that's $1 million that's going to increase your taxes, and they don't do it, then we don't have Pleasant Grove.
Well-
That's the different mentality that can make up what direction
But
Fluvanna
Do you
goes.
gentlemen
There's-
know that we were supposed to have 2 power plants instead of 1?
Yes, the Tenasca,
And how much money do we pull in taxes from that power plant a year?
a lot.
It's got a 6 in front of it.
Yes.
And a lot of zeros.
Yes. Same thing with Louisa. It started with the power plant up in the northern part of their county.
Oh, that one that glows?
Yeah.
That one?
So, I mean, you can't dismiss
Very
these
safely.
things. So,
I don't know. I fish on that. The fish on that side of the lake's a little bit bigger than the fish on the other side.
I'm often
Just saying.
on the water in the
That's
warm
funny.
side, and I haven't grown a third eye yet.
There you
so-
go.
okay.
I'm telling you that Tenasca plant was far better than the coal plant down at Bremo.
It was supposed to be 2 gas-fired plants. We only got 1 because
Yeah.
of opposition.
Johnny Ornelas, his family behind El Mariachi in Zion's Crossroads.
Going there tonight?
There you go. El Mariachi, fantastic restaurant. Johnny, we love it. He's also opening Mexicali on West Main
Yeah.
Street in the old World of Beer location. He says,
excited
and
about
his
it.
wife is an educator, a teacher. He says, schools should be in the conversation. We should not wait until we're packed at schools to consider expanding schools. Education is always on the back burner when it's our future, and it should not be that way. He says we have teachers and kids being taught in hallways in some schools. Please consider schools if you guys are elected to the board. Vanessa Parkhill says this, so why are taxes going up at a rate that is creating such a burden on our citizens? Expansion of government beyond the services that existed when these seniors bought their homes, or increasing costs for the same services? Please have them answer that question. I'll throw that to you. We have a boatload of comments coming in here. Why don't we pick up the pace and tempo with about 7 minutes left, maybe 30 seconds and answer for you guys,
All right,
and then I'll throw them to you.
I'll touch on the schools. I'm a huge supporter of funding our schools. In fact, in this last budget season, I was vocal in support of the school board's budget request, and I asked the board of supervisors to fund it in full.
I at that same meeting, I opposed the budget
Yeah.
increase because there was no plan for it. They were running a budget surplus. And my thinking was, why would I give you more money if you have a budget surplus? Use the budget surplus to fund your needs. Show it, make it transparent, put it in a spreadsheet. But yes, we definitely need to invest, but we need to have plans for how we invest.
So I'm going to jump in on this. Most folks know, but to those who do not know, you as Board of Supervisors only control the budget.
Correct.
Right? So we have 2 separate boards, 2 separate
Correct.
operations. All you can control is how much money you give to the school board.
Right.
The school board is the one that determines how it's spent. The school board is one to determine if we're going to use that 900 seats and make some damn money
Yes.
from those seats. Those are the ones that make that decision.
I think there needs
not
to be
you
some
guys.
partnership, though. The school board needs to have a good relationship with the board of supervisors.
Absolutely.
Has a good relationship with
Yep.
our economic development team. Everybody in the county all knows each other. There's no reason we can't sit down and work these things out.
Next one, John.
This one from Carla Gentry. We attended Groovin' at the Grove. While it was a nice event, there was not much variety in food trucks. Another idea would be to have a dedicated space for young children during this time, face painting, games, etc. The children we saw were having a good time, but most were just running around. A space for them to play would be nice and possibly would draw young families. Multiple people are saying there's nothing to do for children in Fluvanna County. Topic. Gentlemen, go on that one.
Yeah, it was a dry run, a dry run with beer, I guess, not so dry, but it was a great event that can be improved. I think it was an attempt to prove that it's workable in theory, and now we just have the model and we can improve on it, we can build on it. I know from my work with the Young Residents and Families Committee at Lake Monticello, we've had some events that are now reoccurring year after year, and we improve them. We get great ideas from the community, we get more buy-in from the community and volunteers to make these events better. So if you want to see those events go the way that you think they possibly could, get involved. It takes everybody.
I have no doubt that Mr. Spitzer and his team will find a way to accommodate the young children. He's
Yeah.
done an incredible job out there. His youth team's excellent. These will improve as we go. We definitely need to exploit Pleasant Grove Park for all the advantages that it has.
So we have a little competition going on here, right? Because Lake Monticello is 44% of the county.
Yes.
So people that live in Lake Monticello have all these amenities. They have all these
The parks and the other
parks,
stuff.
and they have so forth and so on. And once you get outside of the lake, which is the remaining balance, that's what Pleasant Grove
Yep.
is sharing.
This one right here is from Thomas. He says, Fluvanna County is quickly turning into what Charlottesville was 5 or 6 years ago. It is no longer affordable. It is no longer a place for young families, and if we don't do something about this, we will evolve into Charlottesville and Albemarle County, as Jerry said in the beginning of the show. Please talk about affordability and how we can keep seniors in homes and how we can keep this tax burden from burdening us like it is in our personal household.
We'll let Tim go
It's
first.
that economic development piece that needs to be in place, but by the same token, this year's record tax increase was down to schools, and now we have to fund emergency rescue squad types. We need more people to step up and volunteer. I can tell you firsthand, Lake Monticello doesn't have a problem, but the other houses do. We need people to volunteer.
If we don't invest in infrastructure, then we're just going to continue to be a bedroom community. Your taxes are going to continue to increase, and we're not going to do anything about it to change if we don't have that infrastructure in place to make that change.
2016 to today, third quarter over third quarter, we had a 90% increase in value. $165,000 from median sales price in 2016 all the way up to 2003. We went up 90%. In how many years is that? 1, 2, 3,
7.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years if you count
Yeah.
this year. Roughly 8 years, we went up 90%. Anything else, Jerry, before I ask?
There's a ton. I mean, a boatload here. We got about 90 seconds left, viewers and listeners. This was one that really resonated with me from Laura. And Laura says, talk to anyone that's new to Fluvanna County, and they'll tell you they looked at Charlottesville and Albemarle County first to buy a house because that's where the jobs are. They're coming to Fluvanna because they can't afford Charlottesville and Albemarle County. If this trend continues, we will not recognize Fluvanna. It's certainly not the county that I grew up in.
For sure.
James?
Well, I think that we have to have a place for people to go, and I think that Fluvanna County is in proximity to Charlottesville and also Richmond, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but we got to get the infrastructure in for places in Fluvanna for people to work so that we have that place for them to come and live and work and play. It really does start with proactive approach. We can't just
I would like to add
we
one.
can't just lament what we're losing without doing anything to try and protect it.
I'd like to add one quick point on the infrastructure. Particularly the water around Lake Monticello is controlled by Aqua. The Board of Supervisors cannot do nothing about that. We can talk to them, we can encourage them, but we cannot force them. They're a private company.
Regulated by the State Corporation Commission.
Correct.
We can
and
advocate
I've
to
asked people to get out there. If you don't want this 30% increase, get in touch with the State Corporation
Yep.
Commission. Show up in the springtime when they have the hearings. Now, the James River Water Project, we do
We
control
control.
that.
That's
And
on us.
That'll cure it to Zion Crossroads, and there is going to be a stub going into the Fork Union to feed them down there, but they definitely need infrastructure improvement.
I mean, logically, Zion's Crossroad is where the growth is going to happen. It's just
Correct.
that's where the money is looking at to go. And I would encourage you guys, if you get on, when you get on, to go ahead and look at expanding that. It may not be a popular thing, but our area is extremely small there. It needs to be expanded so we can keep that development in that location over there and keep the rest of the county rural.
Do we strike you as caring about being popular?
Yeah, that's one of the things about anybody who's running for elected office. They don't care about I mean, they kind of care about popularity, but in the grand scheme of things, whoever wins becomes less popular.
So
That's really what happens.
And that's the reason.
Half the community kind of likes you, and the other half dislikes you.
Yeah. Well,
That's never happened to me before.
It's a shame how divisive it is.
It is.
That's a real
It is.
thing, right? That's you know. And,
It is a shame.
And I kicked off the show thanking you guys, and I'm going to end it that way, thanking you guys because
props.
I know how difficult this is firsthand. I really do, and you know this is a difficult choice, right? For folks to make coming up on November 2nd or whatever the date is. 7th. Thank you.
Yeah.
November 7th on that end of it. But we didn't have any divisiveness here. Everybody's respectful.
That's what's great about this.
And that's what I wanted to achieve, is just to have a respectful conversation. My wrap-up question before I let you guys close out. Anybody that I talk to who's running for office, I ask this question. This is a 40-hour job, guys.
Oh, yeah.
You understand that, and are you ready to do that? I'm not talking about your regular jobs. This is a minimum of 40 hours on top of that.
I can easily say I'm ready. The only thing in my life right now is volunteer fire department. I don't have a daytime job.
Most people who know me think I don't have a daytime job either. So
Comfortably
I think you're a
retired.
talk show host.
So I'm willing. I understand the amount of time that has to be put in. So, this is a difficult job in difficult times. We're at a precipice. We have to decide, are we going to go over it, or are we going to navigate around it? I'm ready for that challenge. I've done it in the corporate world. I've done it in the military. I'm ready to do it now.
James, you want to wrap that up?
Yeah, I've got a 8-month-old daughter. I still have to work 9 to 5 in order to afford my home that I could not buy today.
And pay your taxes.
And pay my taxes, yeah. But we need to have folks like myself in the rooms bringing that perspective. And if it means busting my butt to be there to represent the people who believe that, I'm going to do it.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you. We're a couple minutes over, and Judah, the director, is getting a little nervous because these guys got to do a show here very, very, very quickly.
So is the man who signs the paychecks.
So is the man who signs the paychecks on it. I don't want to take advantage of that too much. I take advantage of it just a little bit, but not too much. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Thank you very much for spending the time. This wasn't that bad, right?
This was fun, right? Did you guys have fun?
Yeah.
It was fun, right?
I've been on the radio multiple times.
Yeah.
So it was exactly what you said. Once you get into it, you forget.
You forget it.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, I'm going to go before I get thrown off the set. So, thank you very much for everything, and I'll let Jerry wrap up the show.
These guys, I'll echo what Keith said. Fluvanna's lucky to have 2 candidates like this running. And I'll leave it at that. For those that are asking, the entire interview archived at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com, realtalkwithkeithsmith.com, or anywhere you get your podcast. It's long-form content, and it can't be taken out of context. It's not 15-second sound bites, folks. There's context here. Judah Wittkower, our director and producer. The I Love Seville show is up in 56 minutes. Take care, everybody. That was excellent.
Thank you, gentlemen.
He's going to tell us when the mics